The NFL seems to be in the news every day. It doesn't matter during the pandemic. There's always something. And recently we've heard about these proposed rules which would give incentive to teams if they hire minority candidates for the head coach position or the general manager position. A team's third-round draft pick would be improved if they hire a minority head coach or GM. They're just trying to figure something out because the Rooney Rule hasn't really been working like they thought. What are there, 2 African-American head coaches, maybe 2 African-American GMs in the entire league? Year after year, it seems like.
I think there are 3 black coaches right now.
Okay, 3.
You got Lynn, Flores, and Tomlin.
Okay, so maybe there's 3 coaches, 2 GMs.
And they
you
do
got
consider
Rivera
consider Rivera a minority, yes.
Right. And he should be.
Yeah.
But they're trying to figure something out. Louis Riddick chimed in on this, and he's a guy who, of course, works for ESPN right now, has been in NFL front offices before, and I think he brings up a great point. He says, I think the intention is honest and real. I know they spend a lot of time trying to think of how to get people in these positions, but the bottom line remains owners can hire who they want to hire. And then he goes on to add that if they went with this, where you give a draft pick as incentive, he says, I know people with that organization would wonder, did he get his job because he's the best man for the job, or did he get it at least in part because it gives us a big break in the draft?
Right. It's a valid point.
It would be tough for that person, maybe just dealing with the perception. And ultimately, you just want the best guy being hired for the job. It's tough because it does seem like year after year there might be 7 or 8 openings. And sometimes it'll go to all white coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. I was like, let's just say you're the one owner, right? And you don't care if you hire an African-American, a Latino, an Asian-American, whatever. You don't care. But, in fact, you interview one person of every race, and the best guy's the white guy. You want to still have the ability to hire that person.
Right. That's why I'm against quotas. I mean, they got to – I don't know how you resolve it. It's one of those things because there's no doubt that they're being underrepresented. But you want the best guy to win the job, and that's clearly not always happening.
Yeah.
But that's also not just happening based on race. Sometimes a guy's more qualified for the job, but they give it to another white guy that they're friends with. You know what I mean? It's not just along racial lines. So it's a very sticky wicket. I think I agree with Louis Riddick. They're trying to do something in an honest way. I think they're trying to be genuine, right, with the proposal. But I'm not sure if that's the best way to solve it. But maybe it is. Maybe it's one of those rare exceptions where you have to just, it's not kind of the way you would want it ideally, but it's a means to a good end, maybe.
Tony Dungy chimed in on this, and he's in kind of the Louis Riddick camp. And if you want to chime in, 800-636-1067, but he just says, I've never been in favor of rewarding people for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, back in the day, the NFL owners are becoming younger, just like in every sport. But, the good old boy network, you could see why they weren't hiring the black candidates or black coaches. It absolutely had to do something to do with racial lines. Maybe it's not such, as racial anymore, but I think that, back in the 70s and 80s, it certainly was. But you're right. But you're right. I mean, the fact that there's only 3 black coaches right now out of 32, they are definitely
predominantly African-American league.
Correct.
Look, let's be honest.
They are certainly underrepresented.
These kinds of, I don't know, quota's the right word? I guess quota would be the word. I don't know. When you're incentivize somebody and you kind of, like in college, some kids will have this stigma that, that person only got in because of, they had a certain quota or something, or this person only got hired by that job because they had to hire an African-American or they had to hire a woman. I don't know. I don't really believe in that, but
I don't know that the incentive is so dramatic, to be honest with you. So the proposal is for hiring a minority head coach. I believe you move up 6 spots in the 3rd round of the draft before the coach's 2nd season. So it would be after the coach's first season. So, for example, the Dolphins, who hired Brian Flores, their 3rd round pick would move up 6 spots this year.
Okay.
And then if you hire an African-American GM, you move up 10 spots.
Right.
But
a little
still,
more
it
incentive
is
for that.
It is moving up.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to move up in the draft?
Well, I
Of
mean,
course
they
you want to move up, but it
do
just
they
doesn't-
move up over time if the coaches and GMs stay in place?
I think it's just a one-time thing.
Yeah, just a one-off.
Yeah, and
That's
then
why I
there
don't know
is-
if it's that. Is it that valuable to move up one time for a third-round pick?
And then you can
There-
fire him after the second year.
Well, there
after
is
you move
also
up.
there's also the added incentive if you hire both. So if you hire a minority candidate for both positions, you're allowed to move up 16 spots and perhaps into the second round. So like if you were the Redskins this year, their third-round pick would have turned into a second-round pick.
Would have turned into basically a mid to late second-round pick.
Correct.
If you move up 16 slots, because they had the third pick in the third round, I was second pick in the third
Yeah,
round.
is that how it would work, though?
Yes, according to Jim Trotter.
It would
Of
work so it would
NFL.com.
actually go into the other round, or would it just
Yes.
be the top of the third?
No, it says that you would move into perhaps the second round.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm reading here that the picks would improve if the team has kept its coach or GM for a certain number of seasons.
Wow. Well, like I said,
Teams also receive a comp pick if they hire a minority candidate as a quarterback coach. Or
I
if
think-
another team hires away one of their minority staff members as a coordinator.
yeah. I don't
So
know.
there's a lot of different ways that they can improve the draft status.
I mean, I think they're desperate to do something because teams have clearly been skirting the Rooney Rule for years, where they seemingly have a token interview. Now, some would argue that sometimes this token interview might actually turn into a job, but it seems like many times over the last several years, you hear about a team hiring somebody before they even really interview them, and then they wait because they have to interview an African American candidate. Or there's one guy in the organization who always gets interviewed and never gets the job.
right.
I don't know. It's just a very sticky situation. It's out of my realm, to be honest with you. It's a little over my pay grade. I don't know how you solve some of these issues. I know by sort of just
Yeah,
the
I'm-
letter of it, I don't like quotas. I don't like the notion of quotas. But maybe in some rare instances, it's a necessary evil, because you do want to give everybody the best shot, and you don't want anybody discriminated against, for sure. But you try to promote one group, but you end up discriminating against another. You know what I mean? So who knows? I don't.
Yeah,
have
I'm
a
not sure
solution.
it'll ever
It's over my pay
change.
grade, dude.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll ever change in our lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
you
think it
might
would
get
change, though, as more and more players get into coaching, but I guess they're trying to get more players into coaching.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, most of those guys, yeah, they are. I mean, I think a lot of times they're hiring players. They're hiring the white guys.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why Eric Bieniemy didn't get hired. It seems like his name was mentioned a million times, and he was interviewed a
Well,
million
and
times.
also
reasons-
Louis Riddick's name was mentioned for multiple jobs as GM.
Well, part of what hurt the
Including the
enemy
Redskins.
was his team's success. His team wins the Super Bowl. He can't interview for some of these positions until his team's knocked out of the playoffs. Isn't that the way this works? So his team goes to the Super Bowl and wins it, and these other jobs are filling up while that's happening.
Is that still the rule?
I think that's the
No,
way
they can interview. They just can't hire them until after.
They can't hire.
Yeah, I thought
Right,
that
so
they
they
could
don't
still
like to
interview.
wait so long.
Yeah, I think they can still talk to him. But you're right. I mean, Bieniemy's the OC of the Super Bowl champs, and he doesn't get a job.
No,
Maybe
meanwhile-
next year.
Well, like, but
Meanwhile,
if
I'm
you're-
not saying like the guy might be fantastic, but I had never heard of the Judge guy who got the gig. He was like a special teams coordinator or something like that for the Patriots.
Yeah. Well, those Patriots, assistant coaches always get jobs. They're not always great.
Right.
I mean, Patricia might be canned after this year if he doesn't win some games.